Hello everybody, welcome to another edition of Southern Shadows and Dust. We're in a very special place today. If you've ever been to Atmore, Alabama and been on Church Street, which runs kind of the length of town in the downtown section, if you go from east to west, when you get to the western end of it, you may think that you're at a dead end, but you're actually at a location of one of the oldest cemeteries in the area. Let's take a look. The Williams Station Cemetery is at the western extreme of Church Street in downtown Atmore. If you notice in the distance, you can see the American Legion building and you can see downtown over there. This cemetery, which goes back to some of the earliest graves in the area, used to be huge. To the north end, about where the title lawn place was, there was a Methodist church there. And R.W. Brooks writes that the tombstones and the graves at one point stretched right up to the windows of the church. And by the late 1800s or into the 1900s, it was nearly at full capacity. And that's when they built a bigger cemetery north of town. You have some very influential people that are buried here: Trammell, Lewis, Betty, and others that were big in the town. But there's one in particular I wanted to talk about today, and it's a sad story of a man a newlywed, who didn't last long after his marriage, and it's just a shame. And his name was Nicholas Ashley. It's real important to try to document this grave because, as you can see, the headstone toppled over some years back, and when they did one of the renovations, they laid it on top of the slab. Only problem with that is these old stones are rapidly washing away. The pH in our rain has changed, and in another 20 years or so, and even less with this headstone, you won't be able to tell even what it says. On his grave it says N.S. Ashley. Gives a birth month of June, and then he died, and you really can't tell when he died, but I can tell you it was shortly after he married in 1896. Ashley Street in Atmore was where he lived, and I think that was named after him later. But he was the commissary clerk at the William Carney sawmill, and that commissary is believed to have been where the thrift store is on the corner of 31 and Main Street there in Atmore. Ashley was born in Conecuh County at Belleville, and that's where he lived with his family up there. The early census from the 1880 census, I believe it is, shows him living there in a boarding house, and he was clerking at a store in Belleville. Then he came down and he come to the rapidly growing town of Williams Station. And Williams Station was booming because of what was called the Big Cut. And that was a period of time where all of the virgin timber in this area was being cut and processed, and it made millionaires of men overnight, seemingly. And Carney was one that benefited from that. Ashley was very well respected in the community, and he was also somewhat considered the de facto first postmaster of Atmore. Now, not in a legal sense, but the mail was delivered to the commissary, and if you lived in Williams Station, you'd go there to pick up your mail before Atmore had a post office, and William Ashley would be the one that gave it to you. Ashley was about 30 years old in 1896 or so, 1895, and in that period he met a young lady, and her last name was McDonald, and the two of them wanted to marry. Now Ashley was, this was in August of 1895. He was about 30, and his bride-to-be was 18. Now, as you could imagine, that even in that era could cause some issues. So what happened was now this is interesting because this is not in an Atmore paper. This is in the Pascagoula, Mississippi newspaper, the Chronicle-Star, from 16th of August, 1895. And here's the story about the marriage of Nicholas Ashley and his bride, whose name was Eula McDonald Williams. Sunday morning last, the southbound passenger train had on board an eloping couple, determined to be made man and wife, and when the train arrived here, they embarked and hurriedly made their way to the clerk's office and were soon in possession of the required document that would give any person properly authorized by law authority to tie the knot that would hold fast and hard the aforesaid couple in the holy bonds of matrimony. Armed with this edict of the clerk, a hack was secured, and the couple boarded it and were driven to Moss Point, and going to the residence of the elder L.N. Brock, pastor of the Baptist Church, to whom they made known their desires, and the reverend gentleman soon had them spliced after the most approved fashion. Two souls with but a single thought, two hearts that beat as one until death or the divorce court shall separate them. The only strange feature about the affair is that the groom, on being questioned as to where they were from, talked evasively and only stated that he was from Escambia County, Alabama, while the bride was a Mississippian. The name of the groom is N.S. Ashley, and that of the bride, as it appeared on the license, was Miss Eula McDonald. They admitted to having eloped. He said she was just 18. He looked as if he was just 35, and here ended the first act in the drama of married life. Now, they returned to Atmore and his job and all of that, and the Pine Belt News on August 20th, 1895, referenced it as well. They said, the two were very romantically consummated in Harrison County, Mississippi on August 11th when Mr. N.S. Ashley and Miss Eula McDonald, both of Atmore, were happily united in marriage. They left home Saturday night by the light of the moon, our friend Nick being unable to get the girl's parents' consent. A nice cottage has recently been erected, and the happy couple will retire to Atmore to receive congratulations of many friends and residences. A few years ago, I did an article in the Tri-City Ledger and the Atmore magazine, particularly the Tri-City Ledger, that referenced this union, and I went and tracked down exactly where that cottage stood on Ashley Street. I went to the mapping office and the records at the courthouse in Bruton, and the nice ladies in the basement down there showed me where it was at on a map, and apparently the north entrance of Rotary Village is about where that cottage was. Poor Nick, though, he died very shortly after they married and was laid to rest here at the Williams Station Cemetery. And the bride, well, being so young, she remarried, and within a short time had married a gentleman who owned a mercantile store in Bruton, and thereafter they removed to the Hattiesburg, Mississippi area. And poor Nicholas Ashley died with no children and no heirs to tell his story, and yet he does have a street named after him in Atmore, and he was a valued employee of the Kearney Mill and a well-respected citizen of the new town of Atmore, because the name was changed right around that time period when they married. So I hope you've enjoyed this Shadows and Dust segment. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and we'll see you on the next one.